Hi there, Glocal citizens. Welcome back to the podcast that inspires a borderless mindset around manifesting a new world. I am your host, Florence Adu, coming to you from a holiday weekend in Accra. And whew, I tell you, this is the heat. The heat of summer is March and April, while the rainy season begins to start. So if anyone is familiar with the humidity of any kind of tropics, that's where we are right now. And I will also say, if you're not familiar with this time of year, because it's a lot of the spiritual holidays and things like that. So it's like a whole period of Thanksgiving. So I think they culminate this year with Easter, right? I think Easter, this is the Easter holiday weekend here. I have family in town, people have family. So it's just really interesting to just kind of experience everyone's festive celebrations and just really understand a lot more about our global selves. And I'm so excited for this conversation that we're about to get into because it feels like a family reunion. This gentleman, I had the pleasure of working with many, many, many years ago. Not that many years ago, but many years ago when we first met. And it was such an exciting time working with another local citizen, Emmanuel Tim, on projects that were his project. This project was particularly in Nigeria. So I've already let out the cat out of the bag where he's based. And it was a film called Perspective, focused on communities that were being impacted by mining, really focused on mining. So in Nigeria, a few communities that were focused on the gas. It was gas. Was it gas or gold? I think it was gold in Nigeria. Gold, diamonds in the Ivory Coast, and gas in Ghana. And so that's the last time that we interacted. And I've been on his heels to get him to come join me because the things he's doing are amazing. So let me get to his bio and then we will get to the conversation. I'll get to know more. He is a global citizen, community organizer, and award-winning advocate and humanitarian who has successfully led grassroots campaigns in over 40 African countries. He specializes in practical issues associated with climate change, open data advocacy, and development policies affecting rural and deprived communities. He's a founder of Follow the Money, a homegrown Pan-African grassroots data-driven initiative currently in 10 African countries, and as chief executive of Connected Development, or CODE, which is an organization that he founded. He has won the One Africa Award, which recognizes, rewards, and advances the exceptional work of African organizations dedicated to helping the continent achieve the Sustainable Development Goals, SDGs. When he's not social entrepreneuring, he sits on the executive board of the largest youth movement in Africa, African Youth Initiative on Climate Change, AYICC, and has joined his voice on different platforms and policy influencing coalitions across Africa, such as Not Too Young to Run, which is a movement which drives youth in political inclusion, and also serves as an education champion with the Malala Foundation, an organization working for a world where all girls can learn for 12 years and lead without fear. Hamzat Lawal, welcome to the podcast.
Thank you so much, Florence. It's really great to see you after a very long time. Thank you for having me.
Yes. So let us jump right in. Where are you from? Where are you local? And what is your craft?
So I'm from Kogi State, North Central Nigeria. Okay, in the local government, I speak Ebira. Mm-hmm. And my craft is activism.
Activism. I love it. Okay. And so how does a young man from your local become an activist? What is it that brought you to that place?
I think for me, I was natural. I was born an activist and I learned from my mother, from the northern part that we're from in Nigeria. Women are not allowed to speak or express themselves. But my mother was a strong voice, not only for herself, but for other women. She always bring forward the issues and plight of women and all this community gathering. And she also organized women to ensure that they get what is duly theirs. And I'm a mama's boy. I watched her closely, and that really influenced and shaped me and made me become an activist. From a very young age, I was a member of the Boy Scout movement. And I grew through the ranks and I became a scout leader. And, back in the days when you have environmental cleanup, sanitation, They send out the Boy Scout to go to households, to knock on doors and get older people to come out and clean up the environment, to just, ensure that they sort their waste and trash it appropriately. And, I'm that guy they always push in the front because they say I have a very approachable and nice face that is calm. At that age, I was able to get older people to come out and clean up the environment. I was coordinating not only myself, but older people and just ensuring that once every month, I'm that guy that goes house to house, communities to communities to get them to ensure that they take sanitation seriously.
I love that. And it's so interesting that you're talking about sanitation. I literally was having this conversation about sanitation with my mother who's visiting. And the idea that people somehow feel that they're not responsible for their waste is a real disconnect. And so I want to understand, because you've been doing it so long and you started at a very young age, this idea of organizing communities. Give us some tips. What are the necessary tools that someone and an organization needs to truly organize communities to activate change?
I think first is to live and experience the community because you see a lot of people, there's a lot of campaign, there's a lot of social
Yeah.
movement, there's a lot of issues, social issues. But I see a lot of time the disconnect is yes, a lot of people leverage data, publicly available data, but most time people fail to connect with the actual people that wear the shoes themselves. I live in the city center. But my work is in various communities, so I always travel back to back. But you see, when I go to communities, the first way to build trust with them, because you see, when you go to a terrain that is not familiar, you're a stranger. It's like a virus within the system. But for you to for the system to accept you, first you must build trust. And in building trust is you live and sleep and eat and breathe their air. So in every community I go to, and it's a standard practice for me. At least I stay 72 hours. At least 48 hours, at most 72 hours. In less than 48 hours, you build trust because one, you sleep in there. So, when I go to communities, I tell them, oh, and we have this African culture where everybody visiting is a guest. And there's this culture, you must treat your guest well. So when I go to community, I'll tell them, I need a room to sleep. First, it's a shocker to them because people just want to come in and out. They go in and they want to go out because there's no electricity there, no potable drinking water, no access road. So first, they see this alien guy, city boy, he comes to the community and he's saying, oh, I need a place to rest my head. Two, he's like, oh, take me around the communities and introduce me to all the community chiefs. Three, he's like, oh, where do you guys converge in the evening? What's your night's life? Eating their food, drinking their dirty water, and bathing with very cold stream water, and then they become relaxed and they open up. And then they see me as one of them and they're able to tell me their story, tell me their plight. And my role is to amplify it and draw them closer to governance.
And what you just described is so simple. It's just about time. It really is about the time that you take to humanize the problem, right? So that you can apply actual solutions. So I love that. I want to take a step back because you mentioned the city and being in the city. And so I want to ask you just right off the bat, let's talk about Glocal speak, because I think you mentioned Nigeria, but you didn't mention your local. You're based in Abuja.
Yes.
And so it can be something that you hear on the streets of Abuja or somewhere on the road in some of these communities that you're in. But we want to know what you hear. So I ask you to share a word or a phrase or a saying that has been a meaningful part of any of your local experiences.
More like how far now, waiting day happen, how your side.
Yes.
My guy.
Exactly. I hear Nigeria right there.
Yes.
But the thing that's great about Pidgin is that it is a West African language. So pretty much anyone across the Anglophone West African diaspora can relate to those words. Those are their words. Then you just like you said, you land and you can have these conversations and someone won't see you as alien, right? They might say, oh, your twang is funny, but ha 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 ha, come and have a beer, right? That kind of thing. Yeah. So very interesting. Okay. So now activist becomes a social entrepreneur. Where did the concept of follow the money come from? And which was first? Was code first or was follow the money first? Tell us the timeline of how that all came to be.
Interestingly, it wasn't even follow the money or code. It was a hashtag on Twitter. on social media. So what happened? In 2010, there was lead poison outbreak that had killed. It was reported that 400 children had died due to artisanal
Mm.
mining. It was declared a national emergency where government has released billions of naira, that's millions of dollars, to respond to this emergency to ensure that there is healthcare, there's safer mining practices, and children can get treatment. In 2012, I was struggling to get information on how government had responded and what was the plight of this community. So I went to the Ministry of Health at the federal level. In the city, as a city
Mhm.
boy, I went to the Ministry of Mines and Solid Minerals, and I went to the Ministry of Environment because it was an environmental crisis. So all of these older people kept tossing me around and asking me weird questions. So who sent you? Why are you interested? Are you part of opposition? Are you from the States? What's your business?
Mm.
You're jobless and you don't know what to do and you're just asking irrelevant questions. For me, I just wanted to know what has happened 2 years down the line. So I got on a bus that goes to Zamfara. And
Mhm.
just put this into context, from Abuja to Gusau is about 7 hours under 40, 42 degrees centigrade. It's really hot. Now from Gusau, which is the capital of Zamfara, to Anka local government, at that time would take you about 5 hours. Terrible road. Now from Anka to Bagega, there was no road. There was just a pathway. So you can either go on a donkey, a camel, a horse, or a motorbike. So I rode on a motorbike. In total, it took me about 18 hours to get to this community, traveling from the capital of
Mm.
Nigeria. Of course, I was exhausted, and at the point I felt I was not even in Nigeria because there was no mobile network. You can't even find any living being. It was just in a deep forest before we saw
Mm.
some villages and mud houses. So I got to this community. First, I found out that over 700 children died 2 years down the line. So it was underreported. 1,500 children below 5 years have been exposed to lead poisoning due to artisanal mining and are at the verge of losing their life. Three, no single cent of the millions of dollars got to this
Wow.
community. Not even an official from the government came on ground. So they only had the announcement on radio,
Wow.
shortwave radio, that all government had responded. So for 2 years, they were waiting. And when they even saw me at first, they thought I was a government representative who was bringing the good news that the money would soon come.
Mm.
So, with their permission, I was taking amateur pictures and videos. And then I said, okay, since it was caused by mining, can I even experience the mining its activity itself? So they said, oh, we have to take another 2 hours bike. So deep into the forest to the mining
Mhm.
site. So I was, led by the community chief. I got there, I saw a lot of mining activity. They even took me down on the ground, the mining site, and explained the entire process and value chain. And I kept asking them, if your children are exposed and they're dying, why are you still doing it?
Right.
And none of them say, oh, this brings them out of poverty. They're able to feed their family. They're able to roof their house. They're able to, even send their family member for Umrah or Hajj,
Mhm.
which is in Saudi Arabia. So for them, it's about poverty and coming out of poverty. And they told me something that really broke my heart, that, oh, children comes from God, and their children that have died, they've gone back to God, and God will bless them with more
Mm.
children.
Mhm.
So, of course, with the permission, I took amateur videos and pictures. So I came back to the city and, I had nightmares. I'll be sleeping and I'll just have that subconsciousness, replaying what I have experienced. It was a big trauma at that time. So what I did was, first, everybody's from a community, everybody's from a village, even if we're all
Yes.
in the city.
Yes.
I have pictures and videos, and I believe this can resonate with people on digital
Mhm.
media. And at that time, a lot of people were on Twitter, they're on Facebook, and there are a lot of social causes on this platform. So the name of the community is Bagega, and it needed to be saved. We needed to bring attention to Bagega community. So I created a hashtag called Save Bagega on Twitter. I aggregated all these amateur pictures and video because I also speak local Hausa, so I was able to transcribe them when I interviewed mothers and grandmothers who have lost 12, 15 children in a household. And I put it out on Twitter. So from Twitter, it went viral on Twitter, on Facebook. In less than 48 hours, it was trending. All the hashtag Save by Gega was trending. Like it went from, that Twitter to global, and then Al Jazeera, CNN, BBC, DW. Everybody was calling me and saying, oh, you need to jump on our live program on Skype and talk about this plight. Interestingly, that was when I found that I was the only guy that have actually gone to this community. Even the media people that reported the outbreak and the killings or the deaths never visited. It was just a headline breaking news for everyone, and everybody sort of moved on. So I jumped on all this platform, giving analysis and sharing specific plight and a call to action. And I was collecting signatures, petition signatures from the digital media. My target was 20,000 so that I can submit it to the president to ensure that the funds that were needed, get to these
Mm-hmm.
communities
Mm-hmm.
from a hashtag. And in less than 72 hours, the then president approved the sum of $5.3 million, which was close over a billion naira in local. And that's how this money moves from the finance ministry to the health, to the environment and solid minerals, and down to this community. Today, you have even potable drinking water, you have access road, you have state-of-the-art primary healthcare center, you even have a computer laboratory and a VSAT internet mast in this community. Now you have mobile network,
Mm-hmm.
you know.
Mm-hmm.
The last time I was in the community, I even tweeted from the community and development has now sort of come to this community. And of course, 1,500 children got free medical health care. The women got empowered and now children can go back to school and stay in school. So that's how it all started with a hashtag. And then from hashtag Save by Gega, we metamorphosed into Follow the Money because when it was a success, we needed to follow the money from Abuja to the community. And
Mm-hmm.
then that's how
Mm-hmm.
the inspiration came and it became Follow the Money, which became now a social accountability movement with a lot of interest. And from Save by Gega, we started getting activation from different communities and people saying, oh, you need to come to our community. Oh, we're facing flooding issue. We're facing, public health care crisis. We're facing education crisis. So that's how we started going to different communities. And then we said we needed to formalize. When we wanted to register Follow the Money, it was rejected by government. That's the Corporate Affairs Commission. So we had to now think about, okay, so what name would they accept? Because we became really
Yeah.
popular and the government saw us as
Yes.
threat. So they refused to register us Follow the Money. So we got registered as Connected Development. And then say Follow the Money is our Pan-African campaign. And now we're in 12 African countries where young people are leading this campaign. So for us, we just go in, we activate, follow the money, we transfer knowledge, build their capacity and, give them tools that they can use to hold their government to account. Because, every country with its own context. But what we bring is that knowledge, experience and tool. And then we allow them independence, to run it. And so, yeah, so that's how it all started from a hashtag.
I love it. And so now in these other countries, what is that engagement process like? So a community group or someone will engage you. And then how do you then actually facilitate them becoming an arm of the movement?
So it's two-way thing, actually. In some cases, we see young people reach out to us from Facebook or Twitter, or even send us an email or just send us a
Yep.
DM and say, oh, there's corruption in our country. We want to activate Follow the
Mm-hmm.
Money. And, I travel a lot, for conferences and meetings. So I network with a lot of young people and
Mm-hmm.
activist groups. So some of them pick interest. And then we go in country. We spend at least 1 week with them, train them, run a workshop, and then transfer tools and teach them the process about access to information, how to engage government, how to do needs assessment in community, how to get community buy-in, do town hall meetings, and how to, put all these letters together to write government and do a call to action, how to create hashtag and do hash tracking, all of
Mm-hmm.
this. And then we just let them drive it in. So for instance, in Cape Verde, our campaign is centered around education. In Gambia, for instance, our campaign, is centered around ensuring that budget resources, community understand what the budget
Mm-hmm.
is, how to inform the budget process and ensure government actually budget for what is actually a need, not in their comfort and decide
Mm-hmm.
what is, in Cameroon, for instance, we're doing a lot of community outreach on healthcare and have even our chapter in Cameroon have signed an MOU with the Ministry of Health.
Wow.
Interestingly, now government is seeing value in the work we do that they want to partner with us. They want to ensure that we're able to help them bridge that disinformation gap between them and
Mm-hmm.
citizen.
Mm-hmm.
So in Liberia, for instance, we're working with the Youth Council, another youth network, and hosting town hall meetings. Interestingly, we've also transitioned into observing elections because you see, this is a democratic process.
Mm-hmm.
And
Mm-hmm.
before we
Mm-hmm.
follow the money, there must be a democratically elected representative, be it local level, state, or even national. So the last Nigeria election, we deployed the highest number of people, over 20,000 young people were using tools and artificial intelligence platform to give us
Mm-hmm.
feedback that inform what was happening in real time. In Liberia, we also deployed our election platform. We've even, the last election in the United States, we were there to observe. So for us, it's also to learn,
Yeah.
to build a larger network, share knowledge and experience, and continue to activate a lot of young people so that we can enjoy the dividends of democracy.
Yes, I love it. So this obviously has to be a question because we're talking about following the money. So you are an entrepreneur and you are in an NGO space. How is it funding your organization? What are your tools? What are your resources? How do you make that happen?
So interestingly, Over 75% of our fund,
Hmm.
we get donor organization write us and say, we followed your work. We want to support your work. We
Ooh.
want to identify with the work that you do so you
Hmm.
can scale and amplify voices. Sometimes we put in application or what you call public bid. Sometimes it's scaled through, sometimes it's not. But one thing I've also learned is about strengthening your internal process. So what do I mean? Do you have a policy? Do you have systems in place? What is your HR policy? What is your anti-discrimination policy? What is your finance policy? What's your whistleblower policy? What's the culture of the organization? Because every organization is built based on culture. That
Hmm.
inform the system and process. Because yes, there's hierarchy, but when you come to connected development, and I'm sure Florence, when you experience my colleagues when you were in Nigeria, you won't know who the boss is, because we want people to take initiative and be more creative. But you need to have all of this structure. And for everybody that will give you money, even if they reach out to you and say they want to give you money, they would also do an assessment of your organization. They'll do a programmatic, a financial assessment.
Hmm.
They want to check what is your audit, your independent audit account. What is your management letter saying? Do you have board meetings? Do you have board members? What are the minutes of these meetings? What are your resolution? What is your annual budget? What is your work plan for the year?
Hmm. Hmm.
And are you focused on a specific programmatic area or you're sort of everywhere? So this whole thing would inform what you become as an organization. And for me, I say institution because, as much as we're an organization, we're an institution of
Yes.
knowledge, an institution of practice.
Hmm.
And
Hmm.
now PhD students are using us as a case studies. Research
Mm.
organization are using Follow the Money, Connected Development as a case study. So that's why I'm saying, we're now an institution and, not just an organization, but, something even bigger than ourselves. And that would outlive us all.
Yes. Okay. Okay. Taking a bit of a flip on the switch and speaking a little bit about government, not too young to run. When we look at most of our leaders, we, in my opinion, have a leadership deficit across the globe where we have these people who are not committed to leadership for the good of human progress, but leadership for the power in their egos. And so when you thought about not too young to run and how that movement also is progressing, what were your thoughts and where do you see the change coming in that space?
Well, first, Florence, we have a leadership crisis. We
Yes.
have people in office who are accidental leaders, who are
Yes.
there for their own selfish reasons, not for the collective interest of the people. When we started the campaign, for us, what we wanted to do was reduce the age for running for office. By law, once you're 18, you're seen as an adult. You are allowed to elect your leader, but you're not allowed to run.
Mm-hmm.
Once you're 18, you can vote, but you cannot be voted for, which is
Mm-hmm.
discriminatory. And we're saying if the law can hold an 18-year-old to account, why can't the person also vie for public office since the law has seen that person as a matured person who must be held responsible for their actions or inaction?
Mm-hmm.
So we started a campaign saying, not too young to run. And for us, we approached the National Assembly because it was a constitutional impediment. So we needed to amend the constitution, which was a long road. So what we did was to approach the National Assembly. So in Nigeria, you have the House of Rep and the Senate. The House of Rep is the lower chamber and the Senate is the higher chamber. But you need two-third majority in the both houses to pass it. And then you need two-third majority of the state assembly. In Nigeria, we have 36 states. So you need 24 state House of Assembly to vote yes to it. Then it's now transmitted by the clerk of the National Assembly to the president for assent. And again, when the president decline assent, what it means is you have to wait for another
Cycle.
assembly, which is
Mm-hmm.
another 4 years.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
It's a cycle. So what we did was we identified young people with what we call soft power, different network, credibility, mobilizers and organizers who run campaigns and who are also known and have experience in the youth space. I think we're about less than 10 of us that inform what we call the leadership team, but we call ourselves the strategic leadership team. And then we also identify young people in the 36 states. And we brought them to Abuja. We trained them on community organizing and how they can go back and train the trainer, but also mobilize young people so that when we're able to pass it at the national level, they would now take the campaign at the state level. At the national level, what did we do? We did a lot of protest. There was a lot of protest. There was a lot of street rally.
Mm-hmm.
A lot of public debate. The first public debate we even did, I remember that time we taxed ourselves and said, what we need to even do a public debate, what do we need? We just need a hall. So we say, since we need a hall, the hall was about 200K, 150K. We found one in the center of Abuja where people can travel. and converge. And our target was 250 young people. And we identified about 6 panelists to sort of inform why is this bill important. We also identified 2 people who are against the bill because we also want to prepare ourselves. What is that whole and why are they against it as young people? So that when we approach the National Assembly, we can be prepared to engage people that are against it and people that are for. We had over 500 people came for this town hall. We didn't know that there was a lot of interest from different divide. All the young people in different political parties who are waiting for their turn to run. Because again, when you're even a member of a party, you can't run. So all of them, we didn't know there was that interest, you know?
Yeah.
It was massive. And then we got media, media coverage. So we're all over news, radio, TV, and then we're doing news round and doing advocacy visit just to galvanize our support. So I approached the leadership of the National Assembly who said they had nothing against it. We engaged all of these critical stakeholders. We did a lot of protests and street rallies. Sometimes it almost became violent. I remember when we protested because there was some pushback from the National Assembly. Even the guards, that's the military force, was deployed to come and disperse us. What helped us that day was our microphone and our voice. And we addressed those military guys on uniform with the AK-47 and said, this is a democracy. We're not violent people. We're here, to ensure our rights are ascertained. And the people in the National Assembly are supposed to represent our interests. We're organizing ourselves. We're not constituting nuisance. We're not destroying public property. And you that you're wearing that uniform and you're holding AK-47, you're a young person. So even if they give you order to shoot at us, would you shoot at someone who looks like your brother? Oh, it was really emotional. And we saw the military guys, they started retreating back and they let us be because of course we're not violent people. We're just saying, you know what, you must pass our bill. Of course, we barricaded the road. Nobody can go in or out of the National Assembly. But that's also acceptable democratically because that's how you also
Yeah.
bring forward the issues that affect you and your collective communities. When it was passed at the National Assembly and it went to the State Assembly, at first we got Taraba State who voted no against it. They overwhelmingly voted no. And what we did was we launched what we call Hall of Shame and Hall of Fame. And we inaugurated them into the Hall of Shame.
Shame.
And it went viral. All the media, all the social media people, all the people from Taraba State started calling their lawmaker. Taraba State cannot be in the Hall of Shame. You're there. We elected you there. You have to go back in an emergency sitting and withdraw that vote and then voted yes. In less than 48 hours, that happened. They voted back, the bill as yes. And then we now inaugurated them back into the Hall of Fame. And that's what set precedent. Every state assembly started voting yes for it. We got over 32 states. We just needed 24.
Yeah.
We got 32.
Wow.
Yeah, we got 32 out of 36. So we didn't even follow up with the other state. And then we did what we call a celebration rally. And the idea was before it goes back to the president, since we have 32 states, let's go to the street of Abuja and march to the presidential villa and say, we're celebrating that the president is going to sign it. So we are already celebrating. So he has no reason not to sign. It was so interesting that day, we brought music, we brought celebrity, there were, skateboarders. We started singing and dancing. You saw me on the street, I was dancing there. Yeah, Mr. President will sign this bill. It was really exciting.
Yeah.
And the minister at that time, one of the key ministers came out and addresses us by saying, oh, the president has no reason not to sign it. This is a national bill that is nationally acceptable and the president will not sign it. So, we got that overwhelmingly support. Now, after that time, we started doing a countdown. We're counting down, Mr. President, day 1. Day 2, day 3, and then our democracy day was just around the corner. And we said, Mr. President, the right day to sign it is our democracy day. Let us celebrate democracy, and you sign this bill. And the bill seeks to reduce the age for running for office. Instead of being 35 to run for state assembly or federal lawmaker, now it's down 25.
Yes.
So as a 25-year-old, you can be a state or a federal lawmaker.
Yeah.
We're not even saying 18. Even if our campaign started 18. For us, what you also learn with advocacy and campaign is you must be open to come to the middle.
Yes.
You must also ensure that you can negotiate and say, okay, we'll let this go, but you to meet us halfway. So we compromised and got 25. From 35, they reduced 10 years. So even during the last election, we saw some university students
contesting,
go elected.
Yeah.
Some people who had just left university. They even won. We got the youngest assembly members, 25-year-old.
And it matters.
One, no, no
Yes.
political experience, but the people say that is our representative. And that's the beauty of democracy, Let the ballot speak for itself and let people get into public office. And
Yes.
because of what we did, we can also hold government and young people to account. We'll say the fact that you're elected means that we are the ones who have, suffered under the
Right.
sun.
Right.
Tear gas shot at us, bullets gun pointed at us, but we stood our ground. So you must ensure that you represent the collective interest of young people.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm.
So that's happened. And I remember when the president signed it, it was a big celebration, and then we focused on the political parties saying, don't put money in, let's not do money politics. Because, in Africa, you need a platform to run. There's no independent candidacy, unlike in America. You have to run under a platform, either, any political party. So we
Yeah.
also approach leadership of the party. Why are you selling nominations for millions of naira? Are they going there to make profit? So we started
Right.
advocating for inclusion.
Yeah.
Yes, it was
Yeah.
it was a whole 9 years. It was a lot of work. After elections, we did what we call the convergence.
Mm-hmm.
We brought all the elected officials, all the candidates that ran, both the ones that won and the one that lost. What have you learned? What is the experience? What are the gaps? What are your community members saying? How can we support you? And every year we do the convergence. Every election cycle we do the convergence. And again, Florence, for me, it was also a transition. From Follow the Money, all of these campaigns and movement, I'm also telling myself we cannot continue to hold space. We must let go of space and ensure that we hold other people's hands to take
Mm-hmm.
over the
Mm-hmm.
mantle of leadership. So I've resigned. I've resigned from the Not Too Young to Run movement. And I told the leadership team that we cannot say our leaders who are very old that do not want to leave office, we cannot do
Do the
what they're
same.
doing. We
Yes.
must learn from what
Exactly.
they're doing and
Exactly.
then, sit space for other younger people.
Yeah.
Because when we made that change happen, we're very young. Now we're getting older. Yes, we're more matured, we're more experienced, but we need these other young people to take up this space, learn from our mistakes, and do better than us. So I
Right.
resigned from the movement as part of the leadership
Yeah.
and just on the sideline advising them, working on other campaigns and movements.
Yes. And I love that because what I find that is the problem with democracy is number one, that we're stuck on the idea of parties and those platforms. Like I get it, but I think that is a huge impediment to people participating and telling stories and feeling included. And to the extent that there's no innovation comes from youth doing innovative things. So the reasons why our governments are so stuck in many cases is because they're baby boomers. Maybe they're Gen X's, but there's lack of innovation across the spectrum again. So not only do I feel like there's a crisis of leadership, I think democracy, and I think we can probably both agree looking around the world, is in a crisis as well. So if you were to think about, and this will be the last political question we talk about, if you were to think about how you might merge our cultural systems, because a lot of what you were talking about has a little bit to do with how culturally Africans actually interact with each other, mixed with what we were handed down based on the colonial period, right? What would you imagine as maybe a different word or a different way of organizing people to govern themselves?
I think leadership to start from local. And what do
Mm-hmm.
I mean?
Mm-hmm.
Every solution is local.
Mm-hmm.
Yes, we can have technology transfer. And even I can take the case study of climate change. The solutions are local.
Mm-hmm. All of them.
So first is also to listen to the people, because you say democracy is about the people,
Yeah.
but nobody's listening to the people.
Right.
And I think we must also conceptualize our own kind of democracy. What would work for us? Because you talked about innovation. Why can't we be innovative about our democracy? Why must we do copy and paste verbatim?
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Why can't we say, yes, we're all Democrats, we embrace the tenets of democracy, but this is what would work for us?
Yes.
America didn't just get here. They've worked over 200 years. So why must we now say we must copy the same kind of system?
Right.
We practice a presidential system of government, which is very expensive, and it gives absolute power to one person.
Exactly.
One
A
person
big
who
problem.
who is now on tourism. He's in France, and I hear he's now in London. And according to his spokesperson, he can govern from any part of the world. That's unacceptable. The
Mm-hmm.
American president cannot come to Nigeria and spend 2 weeks and say he's on a working visit. What are you visiting?
Right.
What are you visiting in that? So we must conceptualize the democracy that works for us, how it works. So for me, I think we need to get to a point where we must do a referendum to say that what works for us, how do we want to shape our democracy so that people take ownership? Because a lot of people, when I talk to them, democracy is a bit alien, particularly the
Exactly.
Gen Z. They're like, what
Yeah,
is democracy?
exactly.
Nothing has worked. You say we're practicing democracy for over 25 years uninterrupted. But why are we here? And they're now asking the critical, very critical question.
Yes.
Why are we here? And that's why you see, even in West Africa, you see a lot of military junta have taken over power and they're getting support from particularly young people, which is worrisome. Young
Mm.
people are supporting military juntas, crippling and crumbling democratically elected government. So you see, there's a crisis. And if we don't nip it by the bud, because there's a saying that the worst part of democracy is better than even the better part of authoritarian military government.
Mm.
Because with military government, there's no freedom of speech. There's no national assembly. And in some cases, judiciary is silent. They are the executive, the judiciary, and the legislative arm.
Yes.
You know, nobody questions their authority. So again, we must look at what would work for us, but most importantly, make it all inclusive. Take feedback and voices from community. Before the colonial masters, we had a system that worked. We had a tax system. We had a
Exactly.
leadership system. We had a
Exactly.
community system. You know, you have the chiefs that, you know, govern different territories and different villages, you know. So what went wrong? What can we learn? How can we match this and build our own democracy that we can relate to? And we say, this is our own, this is not alien.
Spot on. And you said something that was really always piques my interest, which is education. So I want to put a pin on that and ask you, because you also were kind of talking about mindset and a mindset hack. So what is your mindset hack? How do you hack into your mindset?
I think for me, what has shaped my mindset is my experience in life. How I have transitioned, how I've moved from, and you know, I'm a product of public primary school.
Mm.
But today, public primary school is a shambles. Nobody want to
Mm.
take their children to public primary school. I'm a product of, you know, engaging leaders, world leaders, even at a very young age. I was meeting with the minister of the Federal Capital Territory. I was meeting with the wife of the head of state. I was meeting with cabinet members and asking them questions. You know, very naive, very innocent, but asking them hard questions. And you know, they always look up and say, "Who's this young small boy
Mm.
that is very bold and outspoken?" And I think for me, the hack is always speak my mind. Though hack is always, you
Mm.
know, yeah, speak my
Yes.
mind. You
Yes.
speak truth to power,
Yes.
and you get respect. And that brings authenticity into the conversation because a lot of them are living in bubbles.
Yes.
And if you don't want to live in bubbles with them, you must bring what is obtainable on the ground and connect it to them and bust that bubble so that they come back to reality.
Right.
Because a lot of all these politicians and leaders, they're not in tune with reality, sadly.
That part. I mean, you said it already. 2 weeks working vacation. It's not real. You know, it's not real. Okay, so education, the Malala Fund. It just sounds like a wonderful experience. And so tell us about how you came to join working with the cause and how you use all of your, your experience to help champion the cause.
Awesome. I've been a huge fan of Malala from a distance. I watched a documentary, and so Malala was visiting Nigeria in 2017, and I got an email from one of her team members that is coming with her and said, "Oh, we've seen your work, we followed your work, and Malala would like to have dinner with you." I pinched myself and said, "Malala wants to have dinner with me, you know?" And what did I do before then? So what I did was I put together a team of 3 people, including myself, and we said, let's map what is the current financial gap, what has gone into education in Nigeria in terms
Mm.
of finance, both government budget and international aid money, so World Bank, IMF, all this big money. And what did they fund? Did they fund system change? Did they fund teacher training? Is it infrastructure? And what is the gap? And what are the policy recommendation and the call to action, particularly in the Northeast that have been ravaged with Boko Haram? So we did that very beautiful research and published it on our website. And we didn't know that it got a lot of attention. And apparently they were doing research on the kind of people Malala should meet with. And they stumbled upon this research and got my email and then shoot me an email. And then on that very interesting evening, you know, I was, you know, ushered into a room. I met Malala, I met her father and the CEO of the Malala Fund at that time and some of the leadership team that was visited. You know, we had over 2 hours conversation and having dinner. Interestingly, I made Malala and her father eat jollof rice and plantain with their hands. You know, I'm that very influential, you know,
Yes.
convincing. And it was a brilliant, and, you know, we became friends with Malala and her dad. And, you know, they asked me a lot of questions and how they can support my cause. And she was meeting with the president the next day and she was asking me, what message should I take to the president? And at that time, I was facing a lot of pushback from government, a lot of harassment and intimidation because of my campaigns. And she took my message to the president. And I saw, she even tweeted about it after the meeting saying, people like Hamza should get more support from government because of the important work he does on accountability and transparency. And she talked about her experience and talking about me and my campaigns, to the leadership of the country. And afterwards, we agreed that we're going to work together, particularly focus on the Northeast. One, to end girl child marriage. Today in Nigeria, girls are still a maid bride. 12-year-old, 15-year-old are giving out hands for marriage. And they're married to 60, 50, 70-year-old men. Girls that cannot take care of themselves are getting pregnant, giving birth to baby. Imagine a baby giving birth to baby, and before they're 25, a lot of them will be divorced or have some health complication. So we agreed to work on a campaign in Adamawa State because Adamawa State government say, oh, the second priority is education. First is tackling security and second is education. And we wanted to use that as a case study in the Northeast. So we did a lot of needs assessment, a lot of community assessment, met with the governor and chief of staff and get them to increase budgetary allocation for education. We also work with the community chief to say we need to end girl child marriage because when we ask families and households, why are you giving out your girls out for marriage? And they say some of them, they want to pay
Poverty.
loan that they've
Yeah.
collected. It's about poverty. It's like selling their girl child, to go become a baby factory.
Mm-hmm.
So, and the community chief passed a local law saying, or what you call the Emirate Council, that no girl should be married out at less than 18-year-old. They must be above 18-year-old. That became a local law that was enforced by the district head and community head
Nice.
just from meeting with the head of the Emirate Council. So, and we did that work for 3 years. And from the lessons, we also have local radio program that speaks not in English, in Hausa and Fulfulde, because in Adamawa State, you have Fulani people who are nomad in nature and also the local Hausa people. So we're running these education campaigns and programs, sensitizing and changing that mindset. And we've seen people come forward, saying we're not going to give out our girl child as bride. We've seen that local people that send their female children to go and hawk have drastically reduced. So now you see increased enrollment in school and completion. And what do I mean completion? A lot of time, a lot of girls drop out of school. Because in a household, when there are 4 boys and 2 girls, they'll prefer to send the boys to school rather than the girls because there's a mindset that, oh, we're still going to marry them out. They're just going to be housewives.
Yeah.
But in most cases, when girls finish high school, they're able to ensure that their family don't go
Taken
into
care of.
poverty.
Exactly.
Their children,
Exactly.
yes, their children are well taken care of and they become graduates
Mm-hmm.
and they end that circle of poverty.
Mm-hmm.
So for us, the call is okay. Even if you marry them out, let them finish secondary school.
Right.
That's high school.
Yes.
So let them not drop out of school or finish just junior high. Let them finish senior high. Even if they don't go to college, at least, they have some life skills that are given to them because in senior secondary school, you're taught different life skills and, interpersonal relationship and networking skills. So that's, what we've achieved. But now I'm working in Bauchi State because the government of Bauchi State hosted an education summit and I was invited by the state governor to come and share my knowledge, my perspective and a call to action. And they used some of my recommendations. So I told Malala, since we've learned for 3 years and worked for 3 years and we have so much impact, let's go to Bauchi State. Bauchi State used to be the highest state that have the numbers of out of school children and mostly girls. Today, they're backward with 10. So they're no longer the highest because of the work now we're doing.
Wow.
Now we're mobilizing young women to become mentors and go to these schools and villages.
Yes.
To relate to mothers, to teachers,
Yes.
to the girls also, to mentor the girls that they can look up to. So you see, and the commissioner for education in Bauchi, she was just recently changed, was a woman. And so we used her as a campaign. I said, if she was not educated, nobody would appoint her a commissioner.
Exactly.
So why not educate your girl child and they become a commissioner, even become the governor of the state? And so we're working, with a lot of government stakeholders, community leaders, community chiefs. And it's been amazing. It's been an amazing experience.
I love it. I love it. You are touching on some very interesting facts about the human input versus the technical input with all the data that you've assembled. And so there's a new basket of funds on the block. Tell us about the new initiative that you're working on. Yes.
When I started the story about how we started as hashtag and then follow the money and then Registered Connected Development, I would say that we're made by the media. Either you call it social media or mainstream media, because everyone sort of jumped on our campaign. And for me, I'm launching this basket fund of $5 million for the next 5 years. So $1 million every year to be disbursed to journalists, investigative reporter, media houses to integrate artificial intelligence into their work because the world is changing. The world is not how we know it before. It has changed. And a lot of journalists worry about tools, resources to actually do their story. So why do you have to think about that? Why not just get connected development have a pool of funds that you can pitch. And all you have to worry about is the story itself, not about the resources, about the technical capacity, not about amplifying the story, but just about the story that brings about the change. And for me, this is about giving back to the community that have supported our work. So that's why I've launched this basket fund, and it's an open basket fund. I'm networking and reaching out to different donors, both private foundations and multilaterals. Come and invest into what will become the artificial intelligence newsroom, so that Africa and Nigeria will not be left behind, so that journalists can actually do their jobs with dignity. We're not worrying about safety, not worrying about transportation to this community, or even insurance, for instance, if anything go wrong. So that's new big idea, giving back to a very critical sector that can mass educate and sensitize people. We just focused on their jobs. That's what it's all about.
Yeah. So my biggest challenge when I think about Africa and AI is the data, the language models. As you're thinking about this, what aspect of it is training data that is specifically for, or will be that tool that much better of a tool? Because what I find when I'm using the tools and other people is that it's really with a lens on Western culture and Western ideas. And so as you're launching this, what are your thoughts on partnering or just finding ways that help journalists to be accessing AIs that speak more to our cultural contexts?
So you see, Florence, AI is a machine learning tool.
Yes.
It's what you feed it in that over time it will learn and then give you as output.
Yeah.
And if you look at, all of these developers and people continue to feed into AI, even when you look at open AI, you don't see the African context and dynamics into it. So what we're thinking is, how can we also launch different newsroom with the context of African AI? With the context and feeding and the machine learning of, Africa itself, because a lot of newsroom today in the continent have not integrated AI. I spoke to a lot of journalists. They're still trying to struggle around AI because, again, this funds would also build their capacity, do needs assessment, and help them transition into embracing technology wholeheartedly. But you see, my biggest worry is, and when I spoke to journalists and don't understand AI, people that don't understand something always reject it or they fight it. If you remember, and let me use the case study of HIV and AIDS. There was the first breaking news about HIV and AIDS was the skull, and X. And then there was this breaking news that if you have HIV, that's the end of your life.
Yeah.
Which is wrong. And that made a lot of people become apprehensive. And then that also increased people not wanting to even go for their antiretroviral drug. People don't want to get tested. And then discrimination was on the high. I don't want the same case with AI, because one wrong story about artificial intelligence, we're going to lose. Imagine if the mass population in Africa, there's a breaking news that, AI is going to deal with invading your privacy. Everybody would run out of. So that's what I'm trying to overcome.
Yeah.
Where journalists and newsroom understand that this can help us strengthen democracy, help us bring about change, and help us bring about investigative reporting and the voices of people who don't even know technology or AI into the entire conversation and value chain. Where we can inform the machine learning and ensure that they can integrate our context, integrate our own ways of doing things, and also learn our own system and process and bring out output that resonates with us. So it's not just a Western thing. It's an encompassing thing that has integration from this part of the world. So that's why I'm quickly jumping in front of it.
Got it.
And also ensuring that beyond doing all of this capacity building and advocacy, because now I'm doing rounds, visiting different media houses and stations, is also to say, we have funding for you. All you have to do is pitch. We can help you remodel your newsroom. We can help you buy equipment and tools that are AI integrated, so that all you focus on is do your piece and bring about the issues that really matters to the front burner for the next 5 years.
There you go.
And also put Nigeria on the map to achieve the sustainable development goal. So how do we bring the goals to the front burner and the issues that resonate with us? So contextualizing it and localizing our own problem that connects to the whole global advocacy.
Right. And contributing to the knowledge pool for us people. Yeah, very important. And continuously, because that's your work. That is what connected. I
Oh,
encourage
yes.
everyone to go to the Code website and really understand what they're working on, because this truly is an information resource that is unparalleled. And the fact that they're in 40 countries and you're working in 40, so it's just awesome, the Pan-Africanism of it. So before I let you go, we always want to know who our guests are when they're not working and changing the world and all this impact and traveling as you are. So are you a reader, a watcher, or a listener? And what are some of your favorite reads, watches, or listens? Or what do you do in your leisure time?
Not because I'm getting older, so I really prioritize exercise. So
Okay.
what I eat and also ensure that I do a lot of exercise and also spend time with family. So for the past Easter break, I've been, spending time with my children. I have triplets and, I have
Triplets.
Aribo also. So yeah.
Oh my
Yes. So
gosh.
they call me the king of boys. I have four boys. So I spent time this entire weekend because it was a long weekend. Good Friday,
Yeah.
Easter Monday, and over the weekend.
Yeah.
Spending time with my kids, visiting family and friends, but also taking them to the park for picnic,
Yeah.
buying ice cream,
Yeah.
not over sitting there with sugar, of course, but so when I'm not working,
It's kids,
I,
it's
I find time
family.
for family, bond with my children, health, decent food. I like to watch movies. So I watch, Netflix sometimes, but I also read books. I read political books.
Mm.
One interesting book is, Love Does Not Win Election by Aisha Osuri. A really, really interesting
Yeah,
book.
she's
Yeah.
she's been on the podcast.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
Amazing woman. So yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, I even bought a few copies of her books and I wanted to give them away to other young people who are interested in public policy and politics itself. But I'm also thinking about going back to the academic
Oh,
space. So I want to
really?
go back and do my master's. Yeah, I want to go do my master's maybe in the UK and also immediately do a PhD. Because like I tell you, connected development is an institution that would outlive us. So I want to step back a bit and look at it from an outside because that would inform my legacy. So, go back to school, and, embrace more academic knowledge, research, work with a lot of other people from both global north and global south, become a doctor. I want to be called Dr. Hamzy at some point. You also become a visiting lecturer, become a fellow, become a visiting lecturer, and, maybe go into politics or become a government
Oh,
appointee,
there you go. Something
and go
different.
change the system from inside. Yes. I want to
Mm.
challenge myself to do something new and different, Yeah.
I like that. I like that. That's beautiful. This has been so fun. It's so good catching up with you.
Yes.
So,
I really, yeah, it was
yeah, I can't wait to see this out. And so please tell us, where can we find you? Where do we find everything? Where's your best go-to space?
mostly on social. I have a lot of digital footprint, but I'm active on Twitter and I have a
Okay.
Facebook fan page, Hamzat
Okay.
Lawal. On Twitter is Hamzy Code. On Instagram, Hamzy Code. And
Okay.
it's an open public. I don't lock my profile. So
Yeah.
yeah, you can send me a DM, you can follow me.
Yes.
And I'm also on LinkedIn, Hamzat
Okay.
Lawal.
Okay.
I'm everywhere on social media. If you
Of
Google me, there's a
course.
lot of reports and you're going to see my social media handle.
Absolutely, absolutely. And what I will also do, the film that brought us together, I'm going to find out. It was an Osiwa project, so hopefully it's still on their site, because I think this will also give you insights into where this all started and how impactful this work was. So before we go, do you have any last thoughts you'd like to share with our listeners?
I like this entire conversation around Glocal citizen because first, each and every one of us is a citizen,
Mm-hmm.
irrespective of where we find ourselves. We're a citizen. And there's a responsibility that comes with being a citizen. Even if we think local, it connects to the whole global issues.
Yeah.
So we think local, we act global, or we think global, we act local. It's all interconnected and intertwined. But we must take action. We must take responsibility and we must act because not acting is not doing anything. And not doing anything will not take us anywhere in the continent. The time is now and we must find ourselves to shape what we want to see in our continent in the next generation. And we're the most black populous nation. So the world should reckon with us. But if we don't reckon with ourselves as citizens, as people that want to change.
Yes. 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 Thank you. Thank you so much for that. All right, local citizens, this has been another episode of the podcast. You can catch us Tuesdays with new episodes at glocalcitizenspod.com or wherever you get your podcast. Please like, share, subscribe, check out the show notes, leave us a review. We love to hear from you, and act. It's so important. Take action. Until next time, bye for now.